They're really low. Have you seen the reports on OnStar?
No.
The one I'm talking really low, so
Okay.
it means things.
Check, check.
Still writing, dude?
Check one,
No,
two.
not as much. I hurt my.
Or you just have to lower that.
Ankle. Yeah, it's just getting to a point where I did a couple rides last week.
We're getting older.
And it just takes forever to heal up, you know, and, but yeah, no, I've, and then with all the rain, I haven't gotten into onto the trails just 'cause I don't want to be that guy messing with the trail. There's plenty of-
You don't want to get muddy? Come on,
Well,
Rico.
I don't mind getting money, but I don't want to tear up the single tracks, you know? And in our area, you know, just moving one boulder, you know, mean the difference of a gully or, you know, I mean, so, but yeah, I've been riding, and you've been riding at all?
Yeah, more mountain bike than road bike.
Okay. Okay. I wish you were. Yeah, but that Labor Day camping trip gets canceled. I'll let you know, maybe bring your bike. Have you done any of the trails in like the Donianas?
I've done a mountain many times.
Okay,
And then on the road bike, I go up to Dripping Springs all the way up to the top and then
and then
come
shoot
down.
Yeah.
the only thing is, that road's been under construction. I don't know, is it all done?
It's still kind of a mess with the washers, the cranks, running so hard. It's pretty. They do a good job of getting it in there, cleaning it out pretty quickly. But there's also, you know, there's some nice trails, just east of the mountain. Real nice trails. I like them better than the mountain.
Are they dirt or paved?
Dirt and then in the Doniana, it's just north.
Yeah, I need to do some exploring down there. I'm doing just an out and back, dude. I'm just gonna go down there for a breakfast by the party.
All right, well, let me know anytime. I'm ready. I almost brought my bike this time, but I'm going.
I wondered about that. We can't have two computers. Yeah, let's see if this. If you want to, you could be in that room and sit on one of those rocking chairs.
If that works better for you, I can do
Well,
that.
I can go in there too. I'm easy either way.
Fine.
Okay, I'll just go in there.
Good morning, Commissioner Fishman.
Good morning, guys.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm over here at Commissioner Hall's place because we're going to head down to Clovis together later
Oh, nice.
for the committee meeting.
That's why we were getting feedback. The two of you were together.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That does cause disruptions.
Well, we're just disruptive folks.
Duly noted.
We get
Thank
feedback
you.
from you all either way.
I just don't
We'll
want
always
to.
give you feedback.
I'm gonna have Cynthia come in here and we'll give you feedback.
See?
That was a double entendre. Huh?
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Okay. Oh, wait, I have to do one more thing. Okay. Well, it's 9:32 in the morning. This is Wednesday, August 24th. Are you guys still getting feedback?
No, kinda, but not bad.
Okay. 2022, it's 9:30 in the morning, as I said. This is the regular open meeting of the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission, and we're now in session. Let's see. So first we have a call to order and roll call. Judy, can you take the call, or Mike, whoever's here?
Yes, I can. Commissioner Hall,
Here.
Commissioner Fishman,
Here.
Commissioner Maestas,
I'm here.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Here.
Commissioner Byrd.
I'm a present.
There are 5 commissioners present. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Judy. All right, let's have the pledge. Renee Kepler, would you like to give us the pledge today?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then
I salute the flag
I'm sorry.
of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay, Renee. It's not a problem. I'm sorry. I surprised you. Okay. Let's see. Now we have consideration and approval of the agenda. let's see, I had a request yesterday to remove case number 22-00085 UT. That's from the regular action. That was item number 7 from the regular action items. It's a utility matter. It's in the matter of a commission rulemaking pursuant to NMSA 1978 62-8-12, applications to expand transportation electrification. Would have been a potential order issuing notice of proposed rulemaking. We'll do it another time. Does anybody else have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Let's do introduction of special guests. Patrick, do we
Wait,
have- yes?
Madam Chair,
oh, go ahead.
I'd like to move to approve the agenda as
Oh,
amended.
sorry. Yes.
Thank
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? None? All right. Judy?
Yes, Commissioner Maestas,
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman.
Aye.
The agenda as amended is approved by 0.
Thank you, Judy. Now we'll have introduction of special guests. Do we have any today? I don't hear anybody saying anything, so,
Madam Chair, I'm unaware of any special guests for today.
okay, thank you, Hans. So now we'll move on to public comment.
And Madam Chair, I do believe there is an individual who expressed an interest in expressing public comment today. I believe they're at the hearing room, Mr.
Okay.
Rico Gonzalez.
Okay. Mr. Gonzalez, would you like to move forward and give us your comments?
Hello, Rico. Good to see you.
Is that it? Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners, and thank you, Commissioner Fishman, for that warm welcome. I appreciate it. I just wanted to make a quick comment to you all. I sent a letter through Jeff Wexler yesterday to you all in regards to NMPRC case number 190099 UT and 19000348. Just reiterating the fact of our request and need to have an expedited hearing on the matter in those two filings. As Commissioner Fishman will attest to, I'm not necessarily the subject matter expert in any of these kinds of things, as Commissioner Byrd laughs at me. But the reality is for us in our area, and my role as regional vice president for New Mexico inside the company, this PPA is just, important on so many different levels, from an economic development perspective, from and just from a near-term need for energy that I just felt compelled, and the company felt compelled to send this letter to just reiterate the fact from a boots on the ground position. And so I just wanted to give that to you, Madam Chairperson, and that's all that I have to say, unless someone wants a dad joke or two. I got those. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. So do we have any other public comments, Hans? Nobody signed up?
Madam Chair, I did have one other individual indicate a desire to do public comments, but I did not get a confirmation from them.
Mhm.
So if Mr. Nathan Moore is a participant right now, I'm not seeing a Nathan Moore on the participant list currently. But if he is not here, I will reach out to him. I did try to confirm with him yesterday and did not get a response, but if there are no other people in the hearing room that wish to express a public comment, there are no other individuals signed up for public comment.
All right, thank you very much, Hans. We'll move on to consideration and approval of prior meeting minutes. And in question are the minutes of August 3rd, 2022 open meeting and August 4th, 2022 special meeting. Does anybody have any changes they need to make to those meeting minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Judy, could you please take the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman,
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas.
Aye.
The minutes are approved 5-0.
Thank you, Judy. And now we have a item for discussion. It's case number 21-00128-UT, presented by Judith Amer. It's in the matter of a commission rulemaking regarding New Mexico Public Regulation Commission Rule 17.7.3, New Mexico Annotated Code or Administrative Code, integrated resource plans and procurement procedures. And Ms. Amer is presenting an overview of amendments to Rule 17.7.3 NMAC entitled Integrated Resource Plans for Electric Utilities.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Hall and members of the commission. As the Commissioner Hall stated, this matter comes before you today upon the November 3rd, 2021 notice of proposed rulemaking to amend, repeal, and replace 17.7.3 is integrated resource plans for electric utility. And there's a long history to this case, and I can go through it briefly before I rule.
Madam Chair, do you mind muting your microphone?
I apologize. We were figuring out logistics. We figured this is better. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I apologize, Judy.
Oh, no, that's fine. This first started on May 26, 2021, when the commission opened the docket, initiated the rulemaking, and established a workshop schedule. The intention was to update the IRP rule to comply with several laws that were either enacted since 2007 or were amended. And the laws are the Efficient Use of Energy Act, the Renewable Energy Act, the Energy Transition Act, and the Grid Modernization Act. They've all been amended since 2007, and in fact amended since the last amendment of this rule in 2017. We had an initial workshop in June of 2021, and we received comments from New Mexico Affordable Reliable Energy Alliance, Utility Division staff, Interwest Energy Alliance, Southwestern Public Service Company, El Paso Electric Company, and PNM. And we received comments from Onward Energy Holdings. And after the workshop, there were rule changes made to the initial draft that had gone out in July of 2021, EPE and SPS. and P&M filed additional comments. There was another workshop scheduled on August 2nd, 2021 to discuss the updated rule. And then, as I stated, the notice of proposed rulemaking was issued in November of 2021. The reason for bringing this before you today is to discuss what is proposed to be the final amendments, and in preparation to bring a final order before the commission either next week or the following week to amend the IRP rule. And this is going to be hopefully more of a higher level discussion. We may need to get into the weeds at some point if you would like, but that being said, I'd like to just go over at first the reasons for the amendments. First, it links planning and procurement, and which is considered essential to meet the challenges of affecting a clean energy industry and economy in New Mexico, as expressed in the terms and goals of the Energy Transition Act. It unifies the planning and procurement process with specified start dates and filing dates, which places the commission in a proactive position, which is needed to protect the public interest. It modernizes the planning process to accommodate increased stakeholder involvement, and it provides the commission with an improved record of the procurement and specific timelines for its consideration of critical energy resource choices. It promotes the goals of transparency and early stakeholder input in the planning and procurement process. It ensures that updated state policies and all appropriate technologies are properly considered in the utilities resource decision. It improves the public input process. It addresses the recurring problems of poorly designed solicitations that may have been experienced in recent years. It increases visibility into utility forecasts and need projections. And it requires a new paradigm of cooperation and active engagement for all participants, especially for the commission and its staff. It adopts a definitive 3-year cycle for each utility to commence and complete the IRP process and initiate procurements. The new process would take effect commencing January 1st, 2023, and it would provide an order of scheduled filing years for each of the IOUs. And under this schedule, the facilitated stakeholder process should commence no later than March 1st, so that the IRP can be filed with the commission by September 1st of the year scheduled for the utility. And so the stated objective, that's just an overview of the reason for the amendments. The objective, that portion of the rule, which is in 17.7.6, 17.7.3.6, is so that the integrated resource plan will not be an adjudicatory proceeding. It will establish, as I stated, a facilitated process for utilities and stakeholders to vet and reach potential agreement on a proposed statement of need for new or additional resources, and to reach a potential agreement on an action plan that will guide the procurement or development of specifically, there are requirements that are stated in the Transition Act and the Renewable Energy Act, and that utilities shall prioritize those acts to best comply with the state's requirements for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, fostering clean energy development, and grid modernization. In considering proposed resources to address stated need, utilities shall consider distributed energy resources, demand response, energy efficiency, renewable energy, flexible generation, including but not limited to low emission fuel resources, energy storage systems, and transmission and distribution grid improvements. A most cost effective portfolio of resources, which is what the statute specifically states, should be derived from this analysis. So, to get into the meat of the process, we did not change a lot of the required parts of the IRP rule. We did move them to an Appendix A. And so if you look at a red line version, it may look like we deleted them, but we didn't. We just moved them and put them in Appendix A. But step one in the poll process is for the utility to write a statement of need. And that is the section of the rule that pertains to the statement of need is 17.7.310. And it should be based on load resources, existing resource retirements, and other factors listed in Appendix A. Participating stakeholders are allowed access to utility models and assumptions subject to non-disclosure agreements. Because we are sensitive to the utilities need for complying with the non-disclosure agreements, and may in the course of the process propose reasonable alternatives to the utility analysis and forecasts. So there's provision for stakeholders to give their input at the stakeholder process. The statement of need should not be solely based on projections of peak demand within the planning horizon, but may identify the need for meeting seasonal load patterns, intraday variability of renewable resources, reliability reserves, flexible and demand side resources, and renewable energy paired with energy storage as required to comply with statutes and commission decisions. The results of forecasts, including tables, charts, and data, are included as appendices to the proposed statement of need and action plan, and are the body of the filed IRP. Projections of resource costs should be based on most current market information and any projections of needed transmission and distribution upgrades associated with resource needs. That should all be included. Okay, step 2 is for the utility to write an action plan. That's in 17.7.311. Critically here, a change that we've made since the NOPR and based upon workshops and comments filed are that the commission will not approve the IRP, but will accept it, taking into consideration contractual obligations that a utility has with a RTO, a regional transmission organization or balancing authority, such as SPS has with SPP. The utility will update at 1 year and 2 years, will update the action plan at 1 year and 2 years after filing. The utility will notify will notify the commission of material events not recognized at the time of filing. On the whole, the action plan is not all that different from the action plan currently. Step 3 is for staff and interveners to comment and for the commission to review and accept the IRP. This is the facilitated stakeholder process. And it should start, as I said earlier, at least 6 months prior to filing the IRP. So if the IRP is filed in September 1st, as I stated on the scheduled basis, the utility will notify the commission, members of the public, the AG, and all parties to its most recent base rate case and most recent IRP case of an intent to file an IRP. The commission, upon notification, shall initiate a facilitated process so that staff, stakeholders, and the utility and the commission can reach a potential agreement on the proposed statement of need and the action plan. And then 6 months later, the utility shall file the IRP with the commission, and they will explain all resolved or unresolved issues resulting from the facilitated process. So if that's filed on September 1st, then within 30 days of that, written public comments may be filed, and then they become part of the IRP as an addendum. Within another 30 days or 60 days of filing, the utility can file a written response as to whether or not it adopts any of the comments as amendments, or if not, why not. And then 30 days later, the utility division staff will file a statement as to whether the statement of need and action plan comply with the rule. That's similar to the procedure we have now. One of the differences is the addition of, if the commission has not acted within 120 days of filing the IRP, the statement of need and action plan are deemed accepted as compliant. If the commission determines that the statement of need and action plan do not comply with the requirements of the rule, the commission shall identify deficiencies, return it to the utility with instructions for refiling. So again, this is similar to the process we have now. It does have the 120-day limit for the commission to act, as at least to say whether or not it needs to be returned, or whether or not it accepts the IRP as compliant. There's not the commission is not approving the IRP. Okay, that was this third step. The fourth step is the request is for the utility to procure the resources that are consistent with the statement of need and the action plan. That is in 17.7.312, the request for proposals process. And this is a new section. So all of this is new, and it requires the utility to file a request for proposal in the current IRP docket within 5 months of the commission's acceptance of the statement of need and action plan. And I can go through the whole IRP process that it ends up, but to summarize it, as I said, it's 5 months from the commission's acceptance of statement of need and action plan. Then parties will have 21 days to provide comments as as to the consistency of the IRP with the approved action, with the accepted action plan. And then within 28 days of the IRP, of the request for proposal, sorry, the independent monitor, that's, again, I'll go into the independent monitor soon. That's a commission procured independent person who is reviewing the RFP materials and filing a design report. And it will be filed to tell the commission whether or not the RFP complies with the requirements of the rule, or if there are any deficiencies. The commission could request that the utility make modifications. The utility may commence solicitation after that, and within 75 days after receiving bids for the projected needs, the utility will provide the independent monitor with a ranking of projects and proposals that meet the criteria in the rule, a detailed description of price and non-price criteria used for selection of a short list of contractors, a preferred portfolio of resources, and any alternative proposed portfolio designed to meet identified needs. And I'll go on now to the independent monitor, because the independent monitor is part of the procurement process to review the utilities RFP. And I can go through how they're procured, but essentially it's the commission through a designee will undertake a process consistent with state purchasing rules and commission policies in recommending a pool of qualified independent monitors. In selecting the independent monitor, the commission through a designee may solicit recommendations from public utilities. The independent monitor shall disclose any conflicts of interest if they have worked for any investor-owned utility in the last 4 years. The independent, the duties of the independent monitor are filing 2 reports with the commission. One is after the RFP is first issued, there'll be a design report, which, as I said, analyzing the design of the proposed RFP. And then the final report is filed within the utilities 30 days of the utility's submission of a short list to the IM. And the commission believes that the independent monitor is needed to oversee the conduct of a utility's competitive procurement process in order for transparency, sufficiency, reasonableness, competitive fairness, and completion of the process. At this point, I can go through the comments in opposition to the independent monitor or not. There were a lot of comments by the IOUs on this point. And maybe I can come back to it, because I would like to touch on 2 other topics broadly, 3 other topics broadly. Cost recovery. The commission, after issuing the NOPR, agreed with the utilities that the matter of cost reimbursement should be clarified. And the proposed amended rule eliminates from the NOPR rule any presumptions that would attach to the IRPs as accepted by the commission. So it's, if you look at section 13, cost recovery, it just basically says that acceptance of the utilities statement of need and action plan does not constitute a finding of prudence or pre-approval of costs associated with acquiring additional resources. And B, any costs incurred to implement an accepted action plan shall be considered in a general rate case, a resource acquisition proceeding, or an appropriate application for a CCN. So that is different from the NOPRD rule. There's a very extensive variance provision, which we could go through in detail, but that includes emergency procurements and other situations where the commission recognizes that not all resource options are best secured via competitive bidding. And I can go through that in detail if anyone would like me to, but I'm going to move on. What remains from the current rule is, with the exception of requiring additional information about planned upgrades to distribution and transmission systems, the details of existing resources and forecast data assumptions from the prior rule are pretty much the same, and they're found in Appendix A. Also unchanged is the fact that the action plan is the product of utility management, decision-making, and management decisions. It is conducted in a more inclusive public process, but the final decision is the product of the utility management and decision-making process. As I stated briefly, a big change in the rule is that it includes transmission and distribution grid planning into the IRP process in several different sections, in the objective section, in the definitions section, in the statement of need section, in the request for proposals section. And at this point, I stand for questions, or I can open it up to Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Fishman to let me know if there's anything in specific they want put up on the screen for people to see. We have screen sharing capability if you would like that.
Thank you, Judy. That was very comprehensive. I really appreciate your description. I think it's very, very clear in my mind, but I'd like to open it up to the rest of the commission and ask them if they have any questions or want any clarification about any of the points. I guess I'd just point out that to begin with, though, that we got quite a few comments, and I feel that our product really is a result of having listened to a lot of the comments and responded to them. So, but please, if there are any commissioners who have any questions, now is the time, or comments.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
Thank you. Judy, can you please go through the comments for the IOUs that are in opposition of the rulemaking proceeding?
Sorry, I'm having trouble with my screen. In particular, there were some general comments in opposition by the IOUs to the addition of the procurement process as part of the IRP planning process. They remain opposed to that and believe it should not be part of the IRP rule. And then they specifically object to the independent monitor being involved in the procurement process. They think that the independent monitor would include impartiality or prejudge the resource approval process. And in addition, they, although the rule explicitly states that independent monitors are, quote, need to demonstrate independence from public utilities, their affiliates, and bidders. The intention of the independent monitor is to be an agent of the commission, acting solely to ensure that the procurement process results in fair, competitive, not preordained results.
Judy, may I interject here briefly?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Please proceed.
So as it's set up in the rule, the independent monitor does not make any recommendations or decisions about which resources to choose. All they do is be sure that the process in the RFP is fair to all bidders. So they're only the process police. They don't make any decisions or any recommendations as to resources. And the only reason that's there is because in recent dockets, we've had lots of criticisms of the RFP processes and people debating about whether they were fair or not. So an independent monitor is there solely to address the fairness issue.
That's true. Independent is the critical part of the independent monitor. But regarding the objections, EPE continually throughout the proceeding maintained that the role and intent of the independent monitor was to intervene in and direct the procurement process and to prejudge the outcome. And that it should be eliminated, it was unnecessary, and questioned whether the commission had statutory authority to appoint such an entity. In addition, EPE has maintained that the commission doesn't have statutory authority to implement any of the procurement provisions. PNM at one point initially said that it supported the proposal to add an independent entity. However, in response comments, it said that it supported utility division staff to remove the IM from the proposed rule entirely. So it appears PNM changed their mind and determined that the IM provisions were unnecessarily cumbersome and should be stricken. Staff also objected to the use of the IM and recommended that the use of an they objected to it being required. They recommended that it be at optional at the discretion of the utility. SPS did agree that they have successfully used IMs in recent IRP processes, but believe that the utilities should choose the IM with advice from the commission. The Attorney General supported the use of the IM, stating it would be appropriate and likely to lead to fair and competitive procurement. Onward Energy generally supported the IM provisions and stated that the proposed use of an IM is an innovative and potentially extremely useful tool, and that any assertion that the IM would interfere with the commission's impartiality appears to be pure speculation and based on hypotheticals. I continue to quote from onward. There is nothing contained in the draft rule that delegates any statutory obligations or oversight authority from the commission to the IM. Onward further stated that the assertion that the IM would result in the commission's losing its impartiality is, quote, an affront on the integrity of the commission and should be rejected. I hope that answers your question, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
Judy, I would
Thank
like
you,
to.
Judy.
You're welcome.
Excuse me, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, I would like to add in a reflection as well on this point, and that is there was a time in the past when utilities would make procurements and there was a sense on the commission that they were suspect and there was no way to determine whether or not they were fair. And that's been one objective of this rule, is to come up with a process that looks into the procurement process without interfering with it, but just shine a light on what the steps were that were taken, what was the time frame, were actions taken by the utility that they said they were going to do, were the provisions of the RFP carried out the way they were noticed that they would be, were the contracts provided to bidders clear and consistent, so that we could make sure that we didn't have any more doubt and there was no concern about utilities being seen to be manipulating the results of a procurement. That's been kind of a cloud over the commission, I think, for some time. And this is intended to remedy that problem. And it also actually has become, the use of an IM has become much more commonplace by other utilities, and all the regional transmission organizations use an independent monitor as well. So I think it's close to approaching best practices. And we have seen in previous cases, such as the replacement resources case for the San Juan generating station closure of coal units, that without scrutiny, without some sort of ability to see what's going on, there can be long delays in the procurement process with steps taken that are out of the ordinary. And this is intended to address that sort of scenario as well. So, because it creates a schedule that's transparent. But as you already stated, there's no point in this process where the commission presumes to make any sort of decision or managerial decision or order or anything of that sort. It's simply a structure by which we can look into the process and have some independent person say whether or not the process was complied with or not. So, Mr. Vicente Aguilar, I hope that helps you appreciate what our motivations were in creating this process here today. Do you have any further questions based on what I said? I'm glad to answer any questions.
And the other thing, The only thing I wanted to add for Commissioner Vicente Aguilar and the commission is that the utilities have challenged our authority. However, in the statute, and we have numerous statutory authority for ensuring fair, just, and reasonable rates. In the IRP statute itself, they're supposed to have the most cost-effective portfolio. The only way you can figure out if it's a cost-effective resource is that it's the result of a competitive procurement. In the Energy Transition Act and in the Renewable Energy Act, they state that resources should be competitively procured. The only way to ensure competitive procurement is to at least have your eyes on the RFP process, and that's the role of the independent monitor, is to keep their eyes on the procurement process and make sure that it's a competitive process. There's nothing sinister about that. This is about transparency and competitiveness.
Judy?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Can you read the statute for the commission? What
For the-
our authority? Yeah. What is exactly our authority in the statute? I
Yes.
believe you can probably just read like a paragraph.
Well, it's
just so that I can understand. Are we overreaching?
As I stated, the statute, there's many different statutes that you'd have to read in its entirety. But that being said, I can read to you the IRP statute itself. And let me just, I need a second to pull it up. It's interesting, but when this is just an aside, the legislature put the integrated resource planning statute in the Efficient Use of Energy Act. That being said, it's at section 62-17-10, which states, pursuant to the commission's rulemaking authority, public utilities supplying electric or natural gas service to customers shall periodically file an integrated resource plan with the commission. Utility integrated resource plans shall evaluate renewable energy. So that's where you would have to read what the Renewable Energy Act says. Energy efficiency, and that would implicate the Energy Efficiency Act. Load management, distributed generation, and conventional supply side resources on a consistent and comparable basis, and take into consideration risk and uncertainty of fuel supply, price volatility, and costs of anticipated environmental regulations. And this is where I was talking about the most cost-effective portfolio. They say, in order to identify the most cost-effective portfolio of resources to supply the energy needs of customers, the preparation of resource plans shall incorporate a public advisory process. That's our authority for the public, for the facilitated stakeholder process. Nothing in this section shall prohibit utilities from implementing cost-effective, and again, there's the cost effectiveness, energy efficiency, and load management programs. And the commission from approving public expenditures on energy efficiency programs and load management programs prior to establishing rules and regulations for integrated resource planning. And then there's an exemption provision for fewer than 5,000 customers and for distribution only public utilities. And this sentence is, the commission shall take into account public utilities resource planning requirements in other states and shall authorize utilities that operate in multiple states to implement plans that coordinate the applicable state resource planning requirements. And that's the sum total of the integrated resource planning statute. As I said, it implicates other statutes, energy efficiency, renewable energy, and as well as it's part of the Public Utility Act, which requires the commission to ensure fair, just, and reasonable rates and to do all things necessary. And did that answer your question, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar?
Thank you, Judy. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Judy. That was very, very thorough. Appreciate it. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments of Judy or of Commissioner Fishman or myself?
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Yeah,
Vice Chair Maestas.
can we go through the major changes in the rule? I know we had a narrative presentation on those changes, but maybe if we can, start from the top on the rule and just go over the major sections, specifically the exhibit that has the red line changes to the rule.
Of
And I had
course.
some specific questions regarding some new definitions in there.
Yes.
Absolutely.
At this point, I would like, Colin offered to control the screen sharing. And I would like to have a red line, do like a split screen with a red line version on one side and a clean version on the next, because there are times when the red line really gets difficult to read.
B is a red line version.
Yeah. So as you can see, the scope, it's different, but it's not that different. The statutory authority adds other acts that we believe provide additional authority. The objective is, I stated to you the objective in the beginning of my presentation. It just explains more of our goals and mission with the rule. It just adds things. It doesn't, I don't think it necessarily changes things. Down to, did you want to talk about? It crossed out the other definitions and basically reenacted some of them with little minor changes. Was there a definition in particular, Commissioner Maestas?
Yeah, I was wondering how zero carbon hydrogen fits into this. Obviously, it's being pursued by the executive branch, by the governor and several appropriate agencies. And I was wondering if you could address that. How does zero carbon hydrogen fit into this new rule?
Well, that's interesting. It really fits into the Renewable Energy Act rule. And in that rule, we have a definition of zero carbon resources and a definition of renewable energy. So depending on the type of hydrogen it was, in other words, how it was created, would determine whether or not it fit within the zero carbon resource definition in the Renewable Energy Act rule. So then, okay, from there, you would go to anywhere in renewable energy resources. So that's kind of the interplay between the two rules regarding hydrogen and zero carbon resources. I mean, if we go down to the definition of renewable energy in this rule, and Colin, do you want to move it to that definition? Or can you see the definition of renewable energy? I can't on my screen.
So wouldn't hydrogen fall under that proposed definition under renewable energy resource? Because I don't see a zero carbon resource definition.
Right. This definition of renewable energy resource is the definition from the Renewable Energy Act. We didn't change it. Zero carbon resource is a definition that we've included in the Renewable Energy Act rule as being a resource that emits essentially zero carbon. So they are different. And we don't have a specific rule of a zero carbon resource discussion in this rule. All we talk about is renewable energy resources. So if you wanted to specifically include that, you would have to, basically what I think you would have to do is go throughout the rule, and wherever it said renewable energy resource, you'd have to add and zero carbon resources as defined by our RE Act rule. That would be the most thorough way to include that term into this rule. If that's what you're suggesting, that's something that we could do.
Well, only because, as you know, the 100% RPS for IOUs only states that the resource be 100% carbon free. It doesn't explicitly state that 80% of the 100% carbon free resources is renewable. And so, at what point do we incorporate zero carbon over renewable?
Yes, I do understand what you're saying, and it may be something that we should consider adding. I'd like to get some feedback from the other commissioners on that point.
Okay, and then before I give up the floor, I think earlier you mentioned another category of resources. You called it low emission energy sources, and I don't see that defined in here either. You there, Judy?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Audio. I turned off hoping that it would be better. Is it better?
It's better.
Okay. I would have to, if I use that term, I don't think it's in the rule. That's in my memo. And it's just a general term. It's not in the rule. In the rule, there's renewable resources, and they're defined as the way the Renewable Energy Act rule and the statute define them. We didn't add or change anything. We just totally tracked that language. And I was just using that term as a general term in my memo.
Okay, all right.
Judy, excuse me, Vice Chair Maestas, I see there's a comment in the chat from Arthur O'Donnell referring us to, in the section above above definitions, there's a listing of resources to consider, and he says in number 2. Oh, I see, must be D2. And
You
it
know,
includes clean emissions. He says
Arthur,
we don't define zero.
actually, I'd like Arthur to join in if he,
That's fine. Arthur, could you please jump in and provide some clarification?
yes, that would be great.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Judy, and Commissioner Maestas. We're really not trying to be resource specific in terms of everything that we would like to see in terms of a policy. We're just giving the utilities a menu of things that we want them to consider. And while there is some attention on a zero emission, what we talked about was low emission fueled resources, which could include zero emissions, obviously. We don't define these things largely because we're trying to keep conformance with other existing rules and not limit what is going to go into the hopper when the utilities kind of file their plans. So it's a balance, right? We're walking a tightrope between trying to expand the universe of options and outputs from the analysis and not dictate what we want to see. So we could add zero emission resources as a category here. I'm not quite sure if anybody would object to that and require, comment on that because it would be wholly new to the conversation. I think that's a legal question, but I believe that we cover it without defining it.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, may I continue?
Vice Chair Maestas, yes, you may.
Yeah, Judy, I see we've made a big change here. We've taken out the word approval and substituted it with the action of acceptance. What's the difference between approval and acceptance?
Well, it has to do with the process and whether or not it becomes a litigated, drawn out process that could theoretically take the entire 3-year period. There historically that before 2017, I can give you a little bit of history to this rule. There was a presumption that the utilities would be able to receive if the commission approved an IRP. The presumption is that the resource type, not a particular resource itself, but the type was needed and was eligible for cost recovery. That presumption that attached to the approval resulted in a lot of interveners and utilities kind of disagreeing, fighting, arguing, litigating that presumption. And often, or I don't know if that's the right word, but frequently, the litigation could take the entire, so like if you filed in 2023 and your next one was due in, if you filed in 2020 and your next IRP was due in 2023, the litigation could still be going on in 2023, and there was never an IRP at all because it was in litigation. So that was, I think everyone universally, utilities, commission, finds that process to be counterproductive, because the point of the IRP process is to actually have a plan so that everyone knows what the plan is and that the utility can go forth with the plan. And so to avoid litigation, the commission, in response to numerous comments, eliminated any presumption that might attach to an approval and changed so that basically the utility, if it's in an IRP, they still have to go forth in a CCN proceeding, a PPA proceeding, a general rate case. They have to prove their case that the costs were reasonable and prudent. There's no presumption of reasonableness and prudency. In return, the commission doesn't approve it. The commission will just accept it for conformance with the requirements of the rule. And if the commission thinks it doesn't meet the requirements of the rule, it will return the IRP to the utility with comments about how to correct any deficiencies. That's a similar process to what the commission did in 2017 in response to this historical protracted litigation. So I hope I answered your question.
You did. So the prudency, there's still prudency, but a prudency of the process relative to the rule. But the real,
I don't know, you don't, the word prudency comes into the cost recovery. So you don't usually use that word. There's, I would think the word would be compliance with the rule. We accept it as being compliant with the rule. No prudency will attach. That will be determined or litigated in a subsequent PPA, CCN or rate case.
okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I had for now.
Thank you, Vice Chair Maestas.
Madam Chair, may I make
Yes,
a
Commissioner Fishman.
couple of comments following up on Commissioner Maestas' questions, which were good questions. A couple benefits that I see from the rules or putting it together is by having the independent monitor and by having the input from stakeholders early in this process, we hope to avoid a couple of things. One is, oops, are you making hand signals for me? Oh, okay. We want to avoid situations like one that happened with EPE, and we had Rico commenting this morning about wanting to expedite a procurement. Well, I think the reason that we want to expedite that procurement was a while back, the commission denied a new gas plant procurement. And our hearing examiner determined their application was not compliant with the Renewable Energy Act. And if we'd had a process like what's being proposed here in place, stakeholders would have pointed that out early on, and we wouldn't need to be facing kind of an emergency procurement because we denied an earlier procurement. So the idea here is that we get a lot more collaboration and we avoid those kinds of situations. Also, I think what's really interesting to me is we've had these IRPs, and if you litigate them, by the time you finish litigating them, they're stale and they're no longer worth the paper they're printed on. Conditions have changed. So just as a practical matter, we wanted to kind of streamline and avoid litigation while preserving the idea that this is the utilities plan. Everybody has gotten their input in, but it's the utilities decision. But it does create a record. that keeps them honest. That down the road, when it comes to the CCN or the PPA that they're requesting, they've had fair warning about what all the issues are, and that will help make sure that their proposals can be accepted and we don't get ourselves behind the 8 ball and being late on procurements or running into possible resource adequacy issues. So what we're trying to do here is streamline, avoid the cost to utilities and their shareholders of us saying no to a proposed procurement, and also providing more certainty that we'll have on-time procurements for customers. And so we're hoping that what we've put together here will streamline the process and avoid those kind of problems in the future.
Madam Chair, we
What?
can't hear you.
Okay, how's that?
Well, we see you.
What? You can't hear anything at all?
You're better now, thanks.
You are. Okay. What I was going to say is, well, thank you, Commissioner Fishman, in case you didn't hear that. But another aspect of having the procurement transparency portion following the IRP process is to also keep sort of a schedule, bearing in mind that 3-year window for each renewable, for each integrated resource plan to be brought into action. This creates a bit of a schedule too, so that we as an agency are doing what we need to do to assist the utilities ultimately comply with the time requirements in the Energy Transition Act so that they can meet their RPS requirements in a timely fashion. So I see that as an advantage as well. But certainly the aspect that Commissioner Fishman mentioned, which is this, if we have collaborative process and transparency, then everybody knows what's being planned, and the utilities don't run the risk of going through a process and then for some reason having the commission say no. I mean, there's cost involved in that, and that's a benefit to the utilities. So in any case, I just wanted to throw in that one point. So Commissioner Byrd, do you have other questions? Because I think we haven't heard from you yet, except for that question.
Yes, Madam Chair, I do actually. Thank you.
A car or something.
What is that? Good morning, Mr. Mayor. So I have it's probably a simple question, but what is the criteria that initiates the use of the monitor?
The way the rule is written is that the monitor is involved whenever the utility issues an RFP pursuant to the IRP. So in other words, in the integrated resource plan, there's a statement of need and action plan, and the commission accepts it. Then within 5 months of acceptance, the utility issues RFPs to implement the action plan, because the action plan will say procure additional renewable resources. Maybe it'll be that vague, or maybe it'll be more specific. But then within 5 months, the utility will need to issue a request for proposal to actually get those renewable resources. Maybe it'll be like an all-source RFP. I know utilities do those types of RFPs. But at that point, the independent monitor becomes involved.
So is there Is there a dollar amount that triggers, or just the request for proposal?
There are in the variance section, and maybe we should pull up the variance section, Colin, if we can. And I didn't go through this, but I'd like you to see all the reasons that a procurement could be exempted, accepted, whatever the word is. So if you see that there in 17D, there are emergency procurements. There are, oh my gosh, there it is. There are capacity and or energy from newly constructed utility-owned supply-side resources of not more than 20 megawatts. There's 3 capacity and or energy from generation of other utilities or non-utility generators pursuant to agreements for not more than 2 years or less than 20 megawatts. There's improvements or modifications to existing utility generation facilities that change the production capability of the generation facility site in question by not more than 20 megawatts. And the utilities and the estimated and the utility share of the total power generation of the facility site, and have an estimated cost of not more than 20 million. So it exempts under, you can get an exemption for under 20 million. 5, interruptible service provided to the utilities electric customers. 6, modification to or amendment of existing PPAs, provided that the modification or amendment does not exceed the agreement more than 4 years and does not add more than 20 megawatts and is cost effective. And 7, utility administered demand side programs. So we can talk in detail about any of those, but that actually is a fairly substantial list of exempted procurements.
Okay, can we go back to D4? The of not more than 20 million. What is this one?
It says that in a lot
I
of
think it's-
places, actually.
Variances. So to me, that reads that as long as the project's less than 20 million, we get a monitor, but if it's over, we don't need one.
No, I think it's the other way around.
Well, I agree, that's what it was the intent, but it says not more than of not more than 20 million. Am I missing that? Because to me, that reads, if it's
Oh, I see what you're saying.
of 20 million or more, it's really how that's.
I guess I would defer to Art. Do you have any comments on that?
Commissioner Judy, no, this list of variances is essentially a way for the utilities to procure resources without having to go through the competitive solicitation. Some of these things do not lend themselves to a competitive solicitation, like an improvement to an existing facility. That's what we're talking about here in 4. And I think that the language of not more than 20 megawatts and up to and not more than 20 million is correct, because if it's more than either of those, then it would not be exempt under this provision, and it would have to go to some kind of competitive opportunity.
So Commissioner
That's how I'm
Burton,
interpreting this language, and I'm not quite sure if anybody else has a differing view.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Commissioner Fishman.
Go up to D, the paragraph there, and I think it puts puts everything into context a little more clearly. If you read D. So I'm reading D to say that anything listed there gets a variance from requiring an RFP and from requiring an independent monitor.
And also, if I may, Commissioner, that this whole section D is specifically about amendments to the action plan, right? We have a process in which the action plan is accepted by the commission, but by the time the utility goes out to market, something might change. And if it's a material change to the action plan, we want them to refile the action plan, okay? But if it's relatively minor, now relatively is a relative term, and some of these exemptions are actually kind of large, but we wanted to give the utility the flexibility that they require in order to meet load without having to go through a whole process again, as long as it's limited. This defines the limits. I'm reverberating into infinity.
Serious. Did you turn your computer off? Yeah. Try to do that.
Madam Chair, I'm actually not done yet.
I'm sorry, I just
Yeah,
asked Commissioner Fishman to turn his computer off, even though it's in another room. I don't know if that's what's causing this, but. I'm just
we'll blame
trying-
him.
We could do that.
I'll wait for him to return. We're just killing dead air right now.
Yeah. Oh, he says it was off. Okay,
off.
well,
Okay.
please proceed with your questions.
All right. So is there anywhere that a procurement is triggered, that the independent monitor is triggered by a dollar amount at all?
No, the independent monitor is brought into the process before the utilities go out to marketplace. So there's no way that we are setting any kind of dollar figure on it except for these exemptions. The independent monitor comes into play if the action plan calls for a competitive solicitation.
What is the purpose of competitive bidding?
To achieve a least or most reasonable cost portfolio. The only way you're going to know if a resource is most cost effective is the terminology that's used in the IRP Act, is to put it up against other competitors and see who bids less.
So the purpose of competitive bidding is to ensure that the specified product is built at the least possible cost.
Least possible is a term that's not used here, and that's a very constrictive phrase that most jurisdictions around the country have moved away from. In this case, it's supposed to be most cost effective.
All right, semantics. That's not the point.
It's actually has a real legal basis, and an absolute least cost would lead us to under investment in the facilities that we're looking to improve.
Wonderful. Moving on. So if the independent monitor ends up costing us more than any potential savings in doing competitive bidding, is there a value of that monitor to the ratepayers?
The value to the ratepayers is an insurance that the utilities are conducting a fair process that leads to a hopefully optimal outcome.
We're willing to spend
the monitor. These contracts with the monitors, they're not all that expensive. It's like on a per hour basis. We could look and see if there's a dollar figure attached to where independent monitors are used. We could ask the utilities, because they've used independent monitors, how much it's going to charge. But this comes as a way of the commission ensuring that the utilities are conducting a process that conforms to the rule, that conforms with what they told us, and that the outcomes can be trusted.
At the end of the day, is not our goal to ensure that we are providing the best possible product at the lowest price? And if we are contributing to the additional costs, are we not missing the whole point of being here?
Well, Commissioner, the utilities have used independent monitors and independent evaluators in the past, and it's not been an issue as to their cost.
Right, and that's interesting. We had discussion about lemmings earlier. I still think that that's an important aspect of when the monitor comes into play. A small project is still valued to have competitive pricing, but then the monitor would offset any value to that. And I don't know where that dollar amount is, 1 million, 10 million, maybe 400,000, then who cares, right? But at some point, some projects just aren't of enough value to justify the expense. I mean, we would all like to go out and buy new equipment for every project, but the reality is you've got to be practical in your purchasing. And just because you have and there's a better machine that can do it better, is it value to go buy that machine for that one project? That's my point. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Fishman.
can we go to D again? I just want to, I'm wondering if the language may cover Commissioner Byrd's concern, which he's absolutely right that you don't want to pull out a cannon to kill a flea. And, you don't want to do that with an independent monitor. But again, if I'm looking at 4, for an individual procurement, it's got an estimated cost of 20 million. We wouldn't be applying the RFP or the monitor. So I don't know if that helps allay your concern, Commissioner Byrd, or if there's a particular language you might want to put there that would make you feel more comfortable that we're not overusing a resource or not, shooting a cannon to kill a flea. So anyway, I think that might cover part of your concern. The other thing that I see is that after an IRP is done, most of if you need new resources and you're going to issue an RFP, you're probably going to issue one RFP that covers all the resources, and not a whole bunch of separate RFPs. And that the independent monitor is going to basically be focusing on that one procurement. And that's potentially a protection against the concern that you're expressing. So anyway, I'll just throw out those couple of ideas, and I think we should be open to any language there that might solve that issue, if you still see it as an issue, that we can insert into the rule.
Thank you, Commissioner Fishman. And that's kind of why I led my questions to D4, because that is specific to modifications to existing generation facilities. But what if they're building new transmission for new generation sites and they need to add a transformer station somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
They want to do competitive bidding and we want to throw in an independent monitor. There may not be a value of that monitor there. Any potential savings has just been lost.
Well, there's a really interesting one, and So, we're also working on the Rule 440 and the kind of transmission upgrade you're talking about there. Currently has been done through Rule 440, where they just give us an advice notice. And if we have any issues with it, then we can get back to them if we want to look into it further. And I don't see any immediate change to that in terms of a transmission or distribution project. And in fact, we're writing in the Rule 440 update, we're just asking for a summary of projects that might come up, and we're not asking them to necessarily change their process for putting those improvements into place. We're just asking for, show us the budget for the upcoming year and the projects. So that your particular example, I'm not sure that's going to be, it couldn't be an issue based on what we're going to be doing on what's been proposed in the new Rule 440. So, but that's something, I can show you some stuff maybe offline rather than trying to go into a lot of detail here, and see if we've covered the territory there. Because I do understand what you're saying there, and it's valid.
Thank you, Commissioner Fishman. Mr. Burt, if you have further questions, please ask them now. But if you don't, I think we should maybe move the agenda along, because we have other things to handle on this agenda, and Commissioner Fishman and I are obligated to be in close by a certain time, and I want to make sure we can get there. Do you have other questions?
No, Madam Chair, thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioners have any other questions today? I don't mean to cut this short, but we do need to, and we can discuss it further when we bring it back to the commission if we need to.
Commissioner Hall, I might suggest a few things. Commissioners with specific comments and questions could send them to me. And then I can deal with them before we bring it back. And another suggestion is we could put it back on for discussion for next week. So those are my two suggestions.
Okay, great. That sounds like a good path to pursue. So commissioners, if anybody else has further questions, please do send them to Judy. And then if you still don't feel that they're answered satisfactorily, we can put this back on for discussion for next week as well. Would that work? Seeing a thumbs up and hearing no objection, I'll take that as a yes. So thank you, Judy, for that suggestion. That's productive. Okay, so moving on now to the next item on our agenda, we have consent action items. And Judy, would you mind reading these in? I can read them in. You've been talking for an hour, I feel. Shall I read them in?
It's fine, Commissioner Hall. Yes. The matters, would you like someone to move them and then I can read them?
Okay, fine. Yes, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Vice Chair Maestas. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Byrd. So I have a motion and a second. Judy, can you take our?
Yes.
Do we have any discussion? Hearing none.
Yes, transportation matters. Case number 22-00191 in the matter of application of Rob's Rides LLC for a certificate to provide limousine service, potential order regarding application. Next transportation matter, case number 22-00201 TRM in the matter of the application of Santo Domingo Tribe, DBA Santo Domingo EMS for reissuance of certificate number 55137 to provide ambulance service. Potential order regarding application. On to utility matters. Case number 19-00106 UT in the matter of the applications for 2020 broadband program support from the State Rural Universal Service Fund as per 17.11.10.31 NMAC. Potential order regarding Windstream's request for midpoint disbursements of awards for UNIS project and JAL project. Next is case number 20-00099 UT in the matter of the applications for 2021 broadband program support from the State Rural Universal Service Fund as per 17.11.10.31 NMAC. Potential order regarding Sierra Communication Inc.'s request for final disbursement of award for Turf Drive project. And case number 22-00049 UT in the matter of the formal complaint of Pamela Marshall against CenturyLink. I believe it's a potential. Can we move this? Yeah. Potential orders concerning joint motion to substitute parties and motion to dismiss internet related claims.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, I believe.
So we need to take the roll call.
Yes.
So Commissioner Hall.
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman.
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd.
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas.
Aye.
The consent agenda items pass 5-0.
Thank you very much, Judy. So let's go on to the next agenda item, which is regular action items. The first category is for transportation matters. We have none on this agenda. The next category is utility matters, and we have item number 8. The case number is 22-00214-UT. And the case is entitled in the matter of the Commission's 2022 annual report to the legislature regarding the status of the State Rural Universal Service Fund as per section 63-9H-6Q of the Rural Telecommunications Act of New Mexico. Being presented is an initial order, and it's being presented by Russell Fisk. Russell, would you like to proceed on this one?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. As I alluded to last week, when the Commission opened a rulemaking on to consider changes to the SRUSF rule for the purpose of conforming the rule to the legislative changes that were made to the Rural Telecom Act and to the Connect New Mexico Act and the Broadband Access and Expansion Act. Last week, I alluded to the fact that I'd be bringing this annual report docket before the Commission this week, which is related. This is a report that's required by the SRUSF section of the Rural Telecommunications Act, and it was added in 2021. So there was a previous report. This is actually going to be the third report, but this is the second of the annual reports that started in 2021. So the order that I have drafted would adopt the same procedure that the Commission used last year. We're on the same timeline, began opening this docket. Last year, I think we opened it on August 25th. The report is due October 1st. This year it's August 24th. So it would use the same schedule. It would require, this order itself would require Telecom Bureau staff to file a draft report on or before September 15th and would invite interested persons. Now this order will go to the entire telecom list. So we'll probably get some comments from those who receive funding from the fund, those who might receive funding from the fund, and others who are interested in the fund, to provide their comments. So on September 15th, the commission will have a draft from staff and any comments from interested persons. And then the commission will have 2 more open meeting dates to finalize the commission's report. Just as a reminder, last year's report, as per the amended section of the RTA, Rural Telecom Act, required or included a brief description of the different parts of the fund, the different types of payments that are made. It gave totals for the previous year because we didn't have all the totals for that year, and it'll be the same thing this year. We won't have all the totals for this year, but we can use last year as an example, as we'll just this year. I think we could do a shorter report. We could just update the commission or the legislature on the different, basically update the different parts of the report from last year, because last year we did a very good job of describing, explaining a lot of things in detail, things that are basic to the fund, and that I don't think we need to do as much explanation this year. But there will also be the recommendation section, and as you may recall, last year the commission recommended to the legislature that the cap on the fund, the $30 million statutory cap, be raised temporarily for 3 years to $40 million to accommodate more of the broadband program applications that the commission had been compelled to reject because there wasn't enough funding in the fund. And then there's also a commission recommendation to allow the commission to fund audits of the rural ILECs, the rural incumbent local exchange carriers who receive access reduction support payments, audits of the use of those payments, and also to have an independent verifier review the results of broadband program projects to ensure that their reporting with regard to the results, the speeds, et cetera, were accurate. That was picked up, I think I mentioned this last week, that was picked up by a sponsor, but it was not passed, and that was a 30-day session, so I think there was some question as to whether that was on the call for the legislative session, but that's just a reminder of what the commission did last year for that. So this is basically the same report, but I think we can do a shorter version this year because we did a very good job of explaining a lot of things about the fund that we don't need to re-explain. We can attach last year's report to this year's, just as we attached the first report to last year's. So that would be this would just set up the same procedure. I wanted to put this on the regular agenda, even though I don't think there's a whole lot to discuss, because I want the commission to start thinking about potential recommendations, just so that to just spend some time thinking about that. We do have over a month left, but just thought I'd put on the commission's radar. The commission will know something about the applications in the broadband program by the time the commission is drafting the final version of the report, because next week, August 31st, Eugene will be making his presentation to the commission about this year's broadband program projects. And so the commission will have more information there. I guess with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much, Russell. Commissioners, does anyone have questions for Russell?
Go ahead.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Byrd.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fisk. Just should we put in the order when the final report will be due?
Commissioner Byrd, we could. I think it does refer to the order. The order does refer to the October 1st deadline that's in the statute. So I don't know that if it does, and I don't think we really need to add anything about that because that was as per the statute, but I'm not sure if I did. Let me look at the order, make sure that I say something about that. I think I cite the statute or quote the statute in the proposed order. So let's see. Yeah, so paragraph 3 quotes the portion of the Rural Telecom Act that that says by October 1st of each year, the commission shall make a report. So I think, and this paragraph 6 says the commission finds that this docket should be open to collect information and to issue this year's report to the legislature by the October 1st, 2022 deadline.
Okay, Mr. Fisk, maybe I asked the wrong question. Does this report have to be approved for submission?
Oh, by the commission, yes. And
Okay. So you have a draft on the 15th. It's due to the legislature on the October the 1st. When is the final report going to be due?
October 1st. So just as with last year, what we'll get on September 15th is staff's draft report, which will have a lot of the information that needs to be reported. And then the commission will have 2 more open meetings to refine that into and add recommendations from on behalf of the commission, and then submit that because that'll be that we run on September 28th. I think is the last open meeting before that deadline. So I think 2 open meetings should do it. It did it last year, and like I said, this report I think we can do a shorter one because we did such a thorough one last year. So that should be enough time for the commission then to finalize report and send it to the legislature by October 1st.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Byrd. Yes, Vice Chair Maestas.
Yeah, I just had a follow-up question for Russell. Russell, I think last week I asked the question, what is the Connect New Mexico approval process of our broadband project application awards in the absence of having a statewide broadband plan? Did you get an answer?
Commissioner Maestas, I discussed this with Mike Ripperger and with Eugene Evans, and I'm actually, may I defer that question to Mike because he's not today, but he's going to make a presentation along, Eugene will be making his presentation on this year's broadband program applications, but Mike is going to make a presentation regarding the most recent Connect New Mexico Council meeting, which I think was held last Wednesday after our meeting, and that particular question going forward.
Okay, so Mike will answer it next week.
Yes, because and as I noted last week, there have been informal communications, mostly with the Office of Broadband Access and Expansion, which is a different office, but they're also in communication with the council. But in terms of going forward, Mike is going to have more detail on that next week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Maestas. Any other questions of Russell before we move on? Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, do you have any questions of Russell?
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, I don't hear any other questions, so I think we'll move on. And thank you very much for this presentation, Russell.
Madam Chair,
Oh, yes, Commissioner Byrd.
I'll move the order.
Oh, fine. Oh, yes, it is on order. Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. I have got a motion and a second. Any discussion further? Hearing none. Judy, can you take the roll? Judy?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I had done mute. Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas,
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman.
Oh,
Was that a yes?
yes.
Oh, okay. The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Judy. Moving on, we're coming to item number 9. It's two case numbers. One is 19-00195 UT. The other is 20-00182 UT. And the case is entitled "In the Matter of Public Service Company of New Mexico's Consolidated Application for Approvals for the Abandonment, Financing, and Resource Replacement for San Juan Generating Station pursuant to the Energy Transition Act." What we're being presented with by Judy Amer is in the matter of the application of Public Service Company of New Mexico for approval of renewable power agreements and energy storage agreements and proposal for demand response plan pursuant to final order in case number 19-00195 UT. Judy's presenting a potential revised compliance order.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the commission. The Public Service Company of New Mexico has been filing compliance notices for I believe over a year, and most recently upon the Commission's March 9th, 2022 order for PNM to file monthly compliance filings and respond to numerous questions. And PNM has made the monthly compliance filings in April, May, June, July, and I'm not sure if they've made their filing yet for August. But it was on January 14th, 2022, that the commission issued many bench requests, all referring to the resource adequacy for the summer of 2022, in particular, status reports on replacement resources for the San Juan portfolio, communications plans, if they're unable to secure adequate resources for 2022 summer, detailed plans for short-term demand response, curtailment, rolling blackout plans, and then particular status reports about the Arroyo Solar, Hickory, and San Juan projects, because previously PNM had informed the commission that those projects were having to either delay their operation dates due to supply chain difficulties. In the March order, there was a revision of certain items, but at this point, PNM has the summer of 2022 has pretty much ended, and the commission, it has been communicated to me from Commissioners Fishman and Maestas that both are concerned with resource adequacy for 2023 and 2024. So this order would amend the January 14th bench requests to delete the year 2022 and insert instead the years 2023 and 2024, and that PNM would continue its monthly compliance filings, but the focus would be on years 2023 and 2024. And I stand for questions.
Judy, I guess I have a comment there. I didn't appreciate that we were going to take the year 2022 off. And what I recall in looking through some of the comments that have been submitted by, I believe it was PNM, they were looking to procure resources even through September of 2022. I think they still considered that a month that for which they, wanted to be sure they had adequate resources. So I wonder if the proponents of this order would entertain a friendly amendment to include the remaining summer months. They were considering September as a summer month for purposes of resource adequacy. We could, if they would consider this a friendly amendment to include the year, at least the month of September 2022 within the scope of this order. Is that, I don't recall who brought this. Was it you, Commissioner Fishman, or Commissioner Vice Chair Maestas?
I consider it friendly. I don't have any issue with it. Commissioner Maestas can tell us what his thought is.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, thank you. And as I say, it was just for the month of September, but because they were seeking to find more resources then too. So Judy, I'd like to make that, I guess I need to make a motion that is a friendly amendment. So I'm making that motion.
Okay, and is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you.
Would you like
Madam
me to?
Chair, under discussion, I do have just a few minor amendments to the proposed order. Up top on page 2, there's multiple definitions of the same bench request. It's bench request A5.
Okay, thank you.
If you could remove one of those, and then
Yes.
at the bottom of page 3, there's a clause. It starts with P&M shall file monthly. There's just a typo there, shall.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. That's all I have.
Okay, is there any discussion?
So is this a motion to approve the entire document, including the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on this further? I guess hearing none. Judy, could you please take the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd.
Aye.
The motion to approve the order as amended passes 5-0.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, now we can move on to the discussion items that are on our agenda. Number 10 is Renata. It is the summary of draft PRC fiscal year 24 appropriation request. And it's going to be presented by Renata Perry-Gallen. Renata, if you're present, please take it away. And
good morning, Madam Chair. I'm going to sit here with Renata.
Thank you, Wayne.
But nice to see everybody this morning. This is a discussion item only. We will bring this back to you next week, Madam Chair, for as an action item. As you know, it's that time of the year again when we are required to submit our FY24 appropriation request to the legislature and the Department of Finance and Administration. That request is due on September 1st, hence the reason to give you a preview today, but bring it back next Wednesday, August 31st as an action item. And with that, Madam Chair, I will turn it over to the person who actually knows what she's talking about, Renata.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I emailed you our roadmap. Well, it's a roadmap that I use in developing the budget request. We did not have all of the GSD rates until just yesterday. So we still had some numbers coming in. And I'll go over those numbers that did change on the roadmap, and it doesn't have a big impact to the overall numbers. When you look at FY24, we do have an increase overall in personal service and employee benefits over the FY23 operating budget. And that stems from a couple of things. In the fourth quarter of fiscal year 22, we did have that 3% compensation increase. And then at the beginning of this fiscal year, we had a 4% base compensation increase. And when I say it was the base is because they did changes to our general services. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But when we went into FY23, certain employees that were at a lower comp ratio or lower pay band in the general services salary schedule got higher increases. So the base was 4%, but if we had employees at a lower pay band or a lower comp ratio, they got bigger increases. So we had some employees that were close to 20% in their increase at the beginning of this fiscal year. And then as they did that, you know, the kind of looking at comp ratio and the general salary schedule, another impact we're looking at FY24 forward is they changed the general salary schedule. So all the midpoints moved up. So when I budget vacant positions, it's at midpoint, but now they're at higher midpoints. So those are kind of the factors that go into the increase on personal service and employee benefits. Contractual services and personal service employee benefits, it looks like we're asking for less, but I'm actually asking for $69,500 more. And how I explain that is in FY23, we did get a Senate amendment that added $200,000 to our budget, but it went into contractual services when we needed in personal service employee benefits. So at the beginning of this fiscal year, we've already moved a bar, moving that $200,000 to personal services. So I want to note too, when you look at contractual services for FY24, we do include $166,700, which is what we will need beyond what we've kind of estimated for the admin fees for community solar. So there's $166,700 in contractual services for the incline contract within that request. In the other financing uses, we are flat. We do have some adjustments from our policy and regulation program to our program support program. And that is mainly just shifting IT expenditures under ASD where IT is at. I should note also too, we requested this past summer to move all of our P codes, all of our programs into one program code. And that creates an ability for a more flexible budget. We were partially granted that request by DFA. We are moving our public safety within policy regulation. So pretty much everything is going to reside in policy regulation with the exception of program support will still be separate with the chief of staff and ASD. At this point, I will stand for any questions in pertaining to the roadmap. I will let you know the things that did change were the GSD rates that came in yesterday. And those pertain to the workers' comp, GSD premium, the employee liability insurance premium, transportation and property insurance. They all went down in FY24 from FY23, but we did have an increase because in FY23, the unemployment comp premium was 0 for all state agencies because of COVID. That is back now, and in FY24, GSD has us at the rate of 7,100. So when I looked at all of that to your roadmap to where we are now, it slightly adjusted down where our general fund is actually at 8.6% and our overall is going to be at 3.4% of what we're asking for our budget. And I will note too, I think it's important to note, we are doing a revenue swap within the budget. There's like almost 490,000 that we're reducing our pipeline safety fee because we've really eroded the fund balance of that and replacing it with general fund. So when you kind of look at that revenue swap of other revenue to general fund, our real general fund increases about 4.2%. And the reason for doing that is because that pipeline safety fee fund does have to support other things for pipeline safety. For instance, that fund will support things like if they need to purchase vehicles, which is something that I know I've discussed with pipeline safety, that We're looking at a special appropriation going into this next session to purchase vehicles using that pipeline safety fee money. So I'm trying to be very careful in that there are revenues coming in, but that because we've budgeted that fund the past 3 fiscal years for operating, it's starting to erode that fund balance. So I've pulled back on how much we're budgeting to make sure that we're not going beyond what we can sustain and to make sure that there's money available still to support that program. If there's any questions?
Madam Chair, I'll just add one thing, if I may, and that is that, this isn't Renata's budget and it's not my budget. This is a very collaborative process that Renata has put together, working with division directors to address their needs for their divisions. And this budget reflects those meetings that she's had with our various division directors. I think it's a responsible budget. Overall, it's a slightly less than $1 million increase, general fund increase over our current fiscal year. I do think that is a reasonable request, particularly when you take into account, as Renata just explained, that a significant portion of that is we're asking for general fund to replace those pipeline safety funds that we've been relying on for administrative purposes. And we probably shouldn't have been relying on those for administrative purposes. We should have been funding them through general fund. As an example, Madam Chair, part of my salary is paid out from those funds.
Oh, my goodness.
It should be paid out through general fund, and that's why we're looking to swap those pipeline safety fee funds with general funds, so that the pipeline safety fund is used for pipeline safety, and we cover administrative costs through general fund. As I noted last week, Madam Chair, the state is expecting over close to $2.5 billion in additional general fund resources when the legislative session starts. So I think an increased request of slightly under $1 million is a responsible request from the commission and the agency.
Thank you, Wayne and Renata. This is a very helpful and informative presentation. Commissioners, does anyone have any questions for Wayne or Renata now? Yes. Was that Commission Vice Chair Maestas?
Yes.
Yes. Please proceed.
Thanks for the presentation. So how does this differ from our request in the previous fiscal year? Is it essentially the same, or how does it differ?
Renata can, Madam Chair, member of the Commission and Vice Chair Maestas, Renata can give you the exact numbers. The current fiscal year, FY23, this request is approximately $1 million higher than our current fiscal year operating budget. But again, over half of that is because we are swapping out using those pipeline funds with general fund. So the percentage increase overall is, Renata?
It's 3.4%. And when you're looking at our general fund, it equates to an increase of $962,800, which is an 8.7%. But again, when you account for that swap, it comes to about 4.2%. Overall, when you look at the agency overall, beyond the swap and everything, the increase over our FY23 operating budget would be $468,600, which would be 3.4%. And looking by category, personal service employee benefits is increasing $599,100, which is 5.2%. Our contractual services is going down $130,500, but I said it looks like we're reducing, but that $200,000 really should have been in PSCB, and we're actually asking for a little bit more there, about $69,500. And for our other expenditure category, we are flat. So on our operating expenses, we are flat. We did a lot of work in the FY23 operating budget to make sure that everything operationally was sufficient for the agency.
So I see there's a vacancy rate at the top of that roadmap spreadsheet. It says 5.09%. Is that the actual?
That's the agency-wide vacancy rate overall. We have 116 FTEs. That's a budgeted vacancy rate of 5.1%.
Okay, so we're almost tracking actual in terms of budget assumptions.
Right
for
now,
vacancy.
I believe, Chair and Commissioners, the vacancy rate is higher. I don't know what the budgeted vacancy rate is. I know FTE wise, we are at a higher vacancy. I want to say 19, and Renee can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's how many FTEs we have vacant currently.
Okay, on the community solar revenue, thank you for, plugging that. We didn't anticipate the community solar program to get off to a good start until we thought it'd be earlier, but now it's going to be maybe sometime in December. So is the 167,000, is that meant to plug that gap in terms of salary for incline until the revenues start coming in through, project application fees and things like that?
Chair Hall and commissioners, the initial estimate I think we had was about $500,000 on the on the fees that would be collected for community solar. Based on the contract, what would be remaining, we will need to ask for bar authority, which would be like $166,700. That's what would be remaining after this year's contract, to ask for bar authority moving forward into FY24. And then the $116,800 that I'm budgeting for contractual services in the budget, it would be in FY24 a little both. It'll be application fees and general fund. Now, as we're looking forward into FY23, obviously that will move all general fund for that last year of the contract.
So is there a way maybe to correct that going forward by asking for more authority to retain these application fees? I think we asked for $500,000 and that's been approved, but it's probably going to exceed that total. So would that be another way of maybe correcting this, is just asking for greater authority to retain a higher amount of revenues from the fees?
Madam Chair and Commissioners, I think the only concern I have in regards to looking at the application fees is I think initially we will have a lot of revenue from the application fees, with it being a new program. I'm not sure in the outgoing years how much we'll be bringing in application fees. I do think there is that opportunity to look for that revenue to support the contract forward, but I do think we will have to be looking at that and really getting a good handle on what is the anticipation in the out years of collecting fees.
Okay. One last question. I think hiring the economist under contract, I think, was a good interim move. Do we have any flexibility in the current budget? I know I'm getting off topic a little bit, but to do the same for an engineer, do we have enough budget headroom?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, yes, we have budget within contractual services. There is some funding there that we could support a professional service contract.
All right, thank you. That's all I had, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Maestas. Other commissioners, any questions about the budget to Renata? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you very much, Renata and Wayne. Appreciate it. The next item is item number 11. It is a discussion item concerning a review of the ex parte rules and policies under NMPRC Act 8-8-1 NMSA and Commission Rule 1.2.3 NMAC. And the presenter is Commissioner Fishman. So please proceed.
Yeah, actually, this is a pretty short item.
Okay.
Quite honestly, I just got a little bit frustrated last week talking about resource adequacy with PNM. And that because of ex parte rules, what we're doing right now is we've got staff meeting every couple of weeks with PNM to get updates on what they're doing for resource adequacy for 2020, now 2023 and 24, and 2022. And because of ex parte rules, staff then meets, and this last week it was Joe and I from the commission who sat in and listened to staff's update on it. But then even in our conversation with staff, because of ex parte rules and the potential for a future docket on these resources, we were limited in what we could talk about with staff. And that's one of those, to me, that's an instance where whatever inside dealings or that we might be avoiding as a result of this ex parte rule or whatever secret behind the scenes dealings that we think we're avoiding, it seems to me the cost of that in our ability to collaborate and communicate is much greater than the benefits we're getting from the ex parte rule in that particular instance. And I had a conversation with Judy about this, and I know General Counsel, this is a really frustrating thing for them. But I think we need to find more creative ways to work with ex parte and be sure that we're still able to communicate and we're not throwing away opportunities to communicate and collaborate. And this was an instance where I really felt that was happening. So all I would like to do really here is, and I'm happy to do this with General Counsel and have Robert work with me with General Counsel and see if there are any tweaks we can do to our internal ex parte rules to minimize the kind of situation that I ran into last week. And so I just wanted to verbalize that to the commission and check in and see if you'd all hate me for doing that, or if it's okay for me and Robert to sit down with General Counsel, come up with some ideas, and then present them to the commission and see if any of it holds water.
Well, thank you, Mr. Fishman. Commissioners, does anybody have any comments or questions on Commissioner Fishman? I don't hear anybody. Yes, I am.
Go fight one.
Yes. Mr. Bird, would you like to say something? I didn't understand what you said before, so was that a question?
No, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, and I see Commissioner or Vice Chair Maestas is not present in the hearing room. Is he gone for the session then, or do you know, Commissioner?
Madam Chair, we're having a hard time hearing you again.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. I keep forgetting to talk into the microphone here. I see Vice Chair Maestas is not present. Has he had to leave the?
He didn't care about Commissioner Fishman's concerns.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. All right. So, Vice Chair Maestas, do you have any questions or comments with respect to Commissioner Fishman's concerns about and his desire to sit down with General Counsel about finding some flexibility within the ex parte rules under the circumstances of the resource adequacy investigation we're carrying out?
No, I support that. As you all recall, I visited the Arizona Corporation Commission to try and steal good ideas, and they have a much more limited interpretation and application of ex parte rules. And so I think that we're much too conservative. And so I support this revisitation of the ex parte rules.
Terrific. And I was thinking Arizona, by the way, Commissioner Maestas, that you talked about that and that should come back into the discussion. So I just want to invite you to be part of that. And, to the extent you have time, take an active role. I'd really appreciate it if you would.
Sure thing. I'll have to dredge up that trip report in which I did address Arizona's ex parte rules relative to ours. So I'll make sure and bring that to the table, Commissioner Fishman.
Terrific.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Maestas. Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, do you have any comments or questions for Commissioner Fishman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, two commissioners approached General Counsel with the intention of changing the ex parte rules. Is that what I understand?
Could you repeat that, please? I couldn't quite hear everything you said.
Oh, what I said is, so two commissioners approached General Counsel's office requesting to change the ex parte rules. Is that what I understand?
Well, my understanding was it was Steve and his assistant Robert who were going to sit down with General Counsel. Vice Chair Maestas, are you intending to join them?
Sure. Or what I can do is I can just simply provide a report, from my Arizona visit and for the purposes of that initial discussion. So it's no big deal. I mean, it's not a quorum, but
Well, I would prefer in answering Commissioner Vicente Aguilar. I'd like to have Joe in on those discussions. I think he'll bring perspective that I don't have that will help.
Well, my understanding is.
My question.
Yes.
My question is not about who's going to go. My question is, what transpired last week? That I don't understand.
Well, my frustration was there were staff is meeting with P&M, but staff, when we met with staff to find out what's going on in their discussions with P&M, they felt limited about what they could tell us because of ex parte rules. And I think resource adequacy for 2023, in particular for P&M, is one of the most urgent issues the commission faces. And feeling like there's information out there that we can't know does not feel like a good situation for us resolving those issues. And, I think we need to find a way to work that we don't have that communication constraint and that we can do all we can to be sure 23, we're not turning the lights out.
Mr. Vicente
Thank you. Judy, is ex parte rules something that needs to be reviewed in the statute, or is it something that can be changed within the commission?
The short answer is we're limited by the statute. That being said, I think there are some, assuming the statute doesn't change, there are some potential, clarifications or delineations we can make in a rule.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, General Counsel's office is going to be giving us options. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar. It was a good question. Okay, is there any further discussion on this matter from anybody? Hearing none, I think we can move on if that's all right with you, Commissioner Fishman. Okay, all right, we'll go on to item number 12, also brought by Commissioner Fishman, and it pertains to potential workshop on a PNM 2023 summer resource sufficiency. So this seems related to our previous matter. Commissioner Fishman, you want to tell us about this?
Yeah. It occurred to me that one thing we can do in the short term before modifying our internal ex parte procedures is have a workshop where we can have a broad group speaking on this, and the commission can hear the information from staff in an environment where ex parte will not limit us. It would also be a great opportunity to hear from stakeholders who I'm sure have a huge interest in this, and give us their ideas on summer resource sufficiency. I heard in talking to Judy and also got a note from Vice Chair Maestas, wondering if resource sufficiency should be a meeting on all the utilities and on all the IOUs. And yeah, I think that's fine. I talked to Judy about it, and Judy came up with, I thought what was a really good suggestion was that maybe for each of the IOUs, we should have a separate workshop on resource efficiency, which at first sounds like a lot of work, but when you think about it, I think most of our issues are going to be with PNM, and a lot of folks interested in the other utilities won't want to sit through that. And we might be able to focus on each utility better if we do them separately. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting suggestion about how to go about it from Judy. But from there, I'll open it up for discussion and see how others feel about how we should proceed.
Thank you, Commissioner Fishman. Commissioners, comments or questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
What is different? This question is for Judy. In 2012, 2011, at the time we had Commissioner Ben-Ray Lujan for PRC Commission. There was problems with CenturyLink. And so he had a public meeting in Pewaukee, New Mexico. And the members of the community that were involved, they were part of the meeting. The telecommunication company was there. Staff was there. I was there. All the commissioners were there. What is different about that, Judy?
Well, I really don't have, thank you for providing me with the details of that, but I would probably need to investigate actually what happened in that case. If all the commissioners were there, that sounds more like a special open meeting. I think, and
Judy, my recollection was that there were complaints. There were complaints about telecommunication services, internet services with CenturyLink, and everyone was invited. What is different about having a public meeting with that type of scenario with to what we are trying to propose today?
Well, I would say there are similarities, especially if all the commissioners go to the workshops, then we would probably need to notice it as a special open meeting as well. So there may be similarities.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, but again, if none of the commissioners wanted to attend, or if only one wanted to attend, then we would not need to notice it as a special open meeting.
Mr. Vicente Aguilar, do you have other questions? Are you satisfied there with that question, that answer?
No, I just wanted to give an insight. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, could I just add something maybe to clarify?
Yes, thank you, Russell.
The three things, different things you really need to think about when commissioners are speaking, in the presence of regulated entities, are that there might be an ongoing case, and it could be an ex parte communication because you have the decision maker, the commission, and or any that applies to any one commissioner here, communicating about an ongoing case with their regulated entity. So ex parte communications is part of it. But then there's also the question of the Open Meetings Act, as Judy was just talking about, whether there are, there's a quorum present outside of an open meeting. And then there's also the actual comments that a commissioner might make, even an individual commissioner, that might indicate prejudgment of the case. So those are like the three major areas. So I just want to clarify that some of these things are in different areas of the law.
Thank you, Russell. So that is helpful, especially the first point you made, where if you're a party to a case and you're speaking to the decision maker outside the presence of the other party, that's what makes it an ex parte communication, because you're outside the presence of that other party or parties.
Yes, exactly. Yes, Madam Chair.
So
yeah, and that being said, though, if it is noticed as a special open meeting, then you're fulfilling both the Open Meetings Act requirements, if there happens to be a quorum, and you're also satisfying, then there wouldn't be an ex parte communication because all the parties would be noticed and invited.
Yes. Thank you, Judy. Okay, so Commissioner Fishman, are you saying at this point, do you want to propose that, or do you want to go through your discussion with General Counsel first?
What I'm saying is I would propose it, and I would carry on some additional discussion with General Counsel on how best to organize it. But certainly I'd want today any Vice Chair Maestas and I had a little bit of communication. So any feedback you all have on one, whether you think it's a good idea, and two, how we should organize it. Should it be separate for each of the utilities or not? That kind of feedback would be helpful now if we feel like we want to go ahead and do that open workshop.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair. Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry, you probably couldn't hear what I said. Yes, Commissioner Maestas.
Yeah, I thought we had separate dockets on supply chain issues and resource adequacy, but obviously those two are linked, because supply chain issues are leading to delays in replacement power projects that have a lot to do with resource sufficiency, especially for summer of 2023 peak. So can we address both of those issues in the same workshop? number one. And then number two, my preference still would be to have a workshop with all the IOUs. And I'd like to do the same, maybe a separate workshop for co-ops as well, because, you know, it's been a while since we did a point in time assessment on what the challenges are with respect to supply chain issues. How is it interfering with resource adequacy in general, providing new service? So can we combine both those issues in this workshop?
Resource adequacy and supply chain.
Yes.
Is that an issue? I think the short answer is if the commission chooses to do that, they would then have it under if it were a special open meeting, you would notice both of those dockets. You would notice the 20-00159 docket and with respect to P&M, you could notice all the pending resource adequacy dockets that P&M has.
Okay, and then my last comment on this is that I would like to see us develop the scope of the workshop, because, you know, we've been having resource adequacy meetings for the past 6 months, and we have implemented a number of actions from those meetings. And I just want to know, like, where are we still lacking with the biweekly meetings with utilities, with the updated IRP filings, with updated 3137 filings. I just want to make sure that it's an impactful and targeted workshop.
Commissioner Fishman, do you have something to say to that?
Yeah, I think we would obviously have an agenda put together for the workshop that we would want folks to comment on. And that's something that I would circulate for people to, I'd have my thoughts on there and invite people to add thoughts before scheduling the workshop so that everybody knew exactly what we're scheduling. And I also think that one of the more important things would be an opportunity for other stakeholders to register their concerns with resource adequacy, whether it be the environmental or consumer advocacy groups. They may have some perspectives that would be very helpful to the commission that we may not have thought of. And I would certainly like to hear those.
Thank you, Commissioner Fishman. Yes, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
I would like to extend the invitation to ratepayers. I would like to extend a public hearing process as well during the workshop, because ratepayers are the ones that are impacted the most. Thank you.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I'm totally comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was in the back of my mind. I just hadn't vocalized it.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar and Commissioner Fishman. It sounds like we're developing a bigger plan than was started out with. Commissioner Byrd, you want to chime in here?
No, I'm good, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Well, fine. Well, Commissioner Fishman, I'll leave it up to you to work with General Counsel and see what step to take next. Notice a hearing or whatever. And if you want to, you and Commissioner Maestas want to work together on that, I think that would be good. If that's what you're intending to do, I'm not asking you to, but if however you guys want to proceed would be fine with me. And I look forward to seeing what we come up with.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Fish.
Vice Chair Maestas, should we make that another meeting between us and OGC? The workshop? Do you want to do it that way?
Yeah, sure thing.
Terrific.
All right, good news. All right, thanks very much. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next part of the agenda, which is communications with Chief of Staff, who is already in the seat. So, Mr. Proust, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I guess it's now good afternoon. Madam Chair, having made the drive from Santa Fe, Albuquerque to the Portales Clovis area many times in my life, I will be brief today so that you all can get on the road. As the commission is aware, we have two presentations before the Water and Natural Resources Committee interim meeting this week, one tomorrow. Actually, they may both be tomorrow, but Mary Jane Parks is also participating in a panel on electric vehicles. So it's good to be represented by at these hearings, and thank you, Madam Chair, for your willingness to participate, and Commissioner Fishman as well. The only other thing I'll note, Madam Chair and members of the commission, as you probably know, Ed Rilkoff, our new utility division director, started on Monday. He's here in the room with me. I won't make him come up and say anything right now, but I am, Madam Chair, going to ask him to reach out to each of the commissioners individually to set up meeting times with you. I think it's very important that he meets with you early in his tenure as division director.
Eating time or meeting time?
Meeting time.
Oh, darn. Okay, never mind.
Although if you want to take him to lunch, Commissioner Byrd, it could be eating and meeting time, but he'll do that hopefully in the next week or two. And I appreciate, and I know he will as well, anytime that you can spare for him. We know that you are busy, but I do think it's important that he have a candid conversations with you about your experience with the utility division, what is working well. And I know there are many things that are working well, but there are also some things that you might be able to share with him that could work even better. So he will reach out to you and your assistants to get those meetings scheduled. He arrived in New Mexico, I think last Thursday after he said a 12-state drive to New Mexico. But he was here bright and early Monday morning, not quite on time because he managed to go over to the old PRC building, but that's
Got his hopes up.
That's right. That's right. That's a forgivable mistake, Madam Chair. And I'm happy to discuss any other topics you'd like to this afternoon.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Proust. And if Mr. Rilke is listening in, I assume he is, a very big welcome with open arms from all of us commissioners. I think I can speak on behalf of all of them to you, Mr. Rilke, because you're much needed, and I don't want to say long overdue. I don't think we had to wait very long to get you, but we're very glad to have you. And I look forward to meeting with you in person sometime in the very near future, as I expect all the commissioners are. So thanks very much for joining our team. And thank you, Mr. Proust. If that's all you have, we'll move on. Let's see, we have communications with General Counsel. Judy, are there any communications you need to share?
The only communication that I have is we're trying to plan ahead and figuring out about whether or not there's going to be a meeting after on the, I believe it's September 7th, after Labor Day. Originally on the calendar, that meeting was deleted, and I'm just checking because there's a few things we need to schedule, maybe need to schedule. But again, this is just a point to bring to your attention and to the commissioners to decide.
Well, Judy, I remember this came up in a conversation I think when we were preparing for this agenda, we were going over, it was like our agenda review meeting. And my understanding, can you elaborate a little bit on the matters that you were concerned about, or is that your issue?
We're investigating whether or not we would need to do a public hearing on a gas company request
Oh, yeah.
for a loan. And we haven't not determined that issue yet. We're looking into it. That being said, if we do need a hearing, it would need to be they've requested that we do it before the September 9th. So, but again, I'm not 100% sure that a hearing is required. We're investigating that. So that's how the issue came to the forefront. But it also would be good for scheduling purposes for all of, any matter, just to know whether or not we have to get it on like, for instance, if we knew there was a meeting that on September 7th, and there are certain matters we could bring next week or the 7th, but then if the 7th wasn't happening, we should bring it next week. So those are the kind of decisions we're going to have to make before this Friday.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. I remember that now. And I remember my reactions too, which was that I know at the beginning of the year, we picked out weeks to not have an open meeting because those were weeks when there was a national holiday, and I guess it's Labor Day, but on Monday. But my concern is our agendas are going to start to get pretty packed as we move later in the year. And if there are cases we can dispose of or matters that would otherwise, be clogging future open meetings, I would like to be diligent and use that time when we have it. And it seems to me school's already started, so I don't know that this is a week, similar to like 4th of July, where we know people are planning on taking vacations with their families. I don't think there would be that sacrifice. I mean, I don't think this would be that kind of a sacrifice if it were on the 4th of July. So my inclination, just to put in my 2 cents here, would be to, plan to have a meeting. And then if you find we need to have a gas company hearing, then we're set. And if we don't need that, we can get some other business done. But I'd like to hear from other commissioners if you have any comments to make. Does anybody have any? Yes, Vice Chair Maestas.
Yeah, I am planning to be in Denver for cybersecurity training. I think it's a NARUC course, and it's going to be from September 7th until the 9th. And I think I'm coming back by midday on the 9th. But if this hearing has to happen before the 9th, maybe Friday afternoon of the 9th, we can have the hearing if it's required by the 9th. And certainly I'm just one commissioner, but if there is some flexibility to either postpone that meeting, that would be appreciated.
Let's see. I'm just going to get my calendar out so I can look at this. We're talking about the 9th is a Friday. So you'll be gone from the 7th through the 9th. So are you going to be present? Are you going to leave? You'll be at that event on the 7th. So I see, because you were planning on us not having an open meeting. Another thing we could do is possibly schedule the open meeting for the 6th. That's Tuesday.
That'll work.
Other commissioners, do you have an opinion on that? That'll follow on is the Labor Day holiday then on the 5th? Is that when we take that day off? Yeah, okay. So commissioners, any comments about having the open meeting on the 5th that week?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Byrd.
Ms. Amir, were you suggesting that we have the meeting, or just wanting to make sure we're not going to have the meeting?
Commissioner Byrd, members of the commission, I am
just throwing it out as it was an issue. Are we having the meeting or not? I don't have a personal opinion. We actually might need to schedule an emergency meeting to have a hearing on the gas company request if we determine that a hearing is necessary. But we also just want to know whether or not there's going to be a meeting on the 7th.
So it doesn't sound like it's an urgent issue. I'm sure Commissioner Maestas isn't the only one that was looking at that as a possibility to take some annual leave or be gone for a while. Maybe we could just, if there's an urgent issue, let's find a date for it. And if it's not urgent, then let's stay with what has been scheduled for months now.
Yeah, it's totally up to the commission at this point. You're right. We don't need to have the meeting on the 7th just for the hearing. We can do the hearing at another day before the 9th, like Commissioner Maestas suggested.
Judy, would you be able to find out in advance of the Labor Day holiday whether a hearing is required, and then
yes, we're going to be issuing, we're going to request that a commissioner issue a single signature order asking for a staff response on this issue. And we're working on that. And then hopefully we could have maybe a staff response before next Wednesday's meeting.
Okay. And there'd be ample time to notice a meeting if it were to fall on the 6th?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, that sounds reasonable. Any other commissioners have any comments or questions at this point? Hearing none. We'll just do it that way, Judy. Yeah, if you want to query staff and see what you can find out for us next week, that would be great.
Yes, I'll do that.
Okay, thanks. All right, so now we have communications with commissioners. Commissioners, do we have any communications?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Vice Chair.
I wanted to ask.
Commissioner Vice Chair Maestas is what I mean to say.
I wanted to just find out what the status is of the Open Meetings Act complaints. If Judy, maybe you can address that.
Yes, Commissioner Maestas, I'm working on a response to the only outstanding response that we need to do for the Attorney General, which is due on Friday, August 26th. That is pertaining to the Open Meetings Act complaint that was filed by the New Mexico Business Coalition regarding 2 meetings held by the commission on June 28th and June 29th pertaining to case number 19-0018. So I will be preparing that and sending that on Friday. We have not heard anything from the New Mexico Attorney General regarding the 2 responses that we did file with them as requested on June 4th, 2022.
Judy, I think it's regarding the pending complaint. I thought I saw a letter from the Attorney General almost restating the complaint from that business coalition.
Yes.
Is that unusual? Because we get the actual complaint, do we not? And then we have to respond to it. We don't need a letter from the Attorney General restating the complaint in order for us to respond.
Well, all I can say is previously, when they did a transmittal, they did just transmit the complaint, and they had 1 or 2 questions. Perhaps they chose to do this one differently. That being said, our response is due on Friday, August 26th.
Okay, but so it's not standard procedure, right? To get a letter from the Attorney General simply restating a complaint from another party?
As I said, the previous complaints that I've received from them, when they transmit it, they've had, it's been more like a one-page letter where they have 2 or 3 questions. If I have not seen was it a verbatim restatement?
It's paraphrased. So do we issue separate responses? One to the Attorney General, one, or I guess they're all to the Attorney General, but how do we consolidate if the Attorney General maybe adds to the original complaint?
We respond to the Attorney General and whatever they asked us to respond to.
Vice Chair Maestas, I'd like to ask you a question. I wonder if I saw the same thing you did. I saw the complaint. Well, I didn't see the complaint letter, but I saw what came from, well, I did see what came from the Attorney General's office. And there was one sentence that seemed to paraphrase what the issue was, and then they attached a series of questions. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
It was like a typed sentence on almost on a form. So it wasn't a formal letter. It wasn't long. This is a question. Did you see something other than that? Or did you just see this thing that was like one sentence paraphrasing the issue and then there are several questions?
I didn't see any new information from the original complaint. It was more of just a summary of the complaint. That's why I was just wondering.
Yeah.
I had never seen that before.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what I saw too. It looked pretty pro forma, I thought. But, they made their point and asked questions. I think, to me, it looked like they wanted to get the questions answered.
Okay. And then the one other issue that I had, Madam Chair, is that the City of Santa Fe had been getting feedback from towing companies about the incidence of thefts from vehicles that were, in the yards of the towing companies. And there was a recent article about this. And I know there's some restrictions in terms of what towing companies can do in terms of safeguarding or gathering personal belongings or belongings of value that are in these vehicles that have been towed and stored in a tow company's yard. Is there anything we can do to safeguard these personal belongings? What legal issues exist that prevent us from giving this discretion to towing companies? Maybe this is a Judy question.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Maestas, that does sound like a Judy question.
Commissioner Maestas, members of the commission, without looking at our rules, I would not be able to answer the question, but I can review them and get back to you on that.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, that's all I had.
Okay, great. Mr. Byrd, do you have any communications with commissioners?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And this is probably a question for transportation, but whatever, they're listening. The ambulance service is given a certain fee that they're allowed to charge for providing their service. That fee hadn't gone up in like years. And with fuel prices the way they are, a lot of the communities are struggling to keep their ambulance running. And the request has come that we reevaluate our rules and see about increasing the permissible fees to keep up with the increase in inflation and fuel prices specifically, but maybe we could increase those fees. We love doing that, increasing fees on people.
You especially, right, Commissioner Byrd?
He's a fee and spend Republican. I don't know what to say.
I know. Do you want the service or not? That's kind of what it comes down to.
Well, and that's certainly, I understand you're saying there's this issue. Are you?
Can you speak into the mic?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Turn up your
well,
mic, please.
I think, oh, I can do that. Heavens. Do that. How's that? Do you like that better? I'm not blaring in your ears yet. Okay.
Fine, Madam Chair.
Okay. So thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Byrd. Is that all you have to say about that, or you're intending to take some action, or?
Well, I mean, right, this is just conversations, but transportation I know our folks in transportation are going to hop right on that.
Okay.
It just needed to be, brought to the forefront.
I appreciate it. Let's see, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, do you have any communications for us?
Madam Chair, I just want to remind Judy earlier, she's talking about the response letter to the Attorney General.
Mhm.
She said Friday, August the 6th, twice. So when is it due, Judy?
It's due August 2026.
Okay, 26 is on a Wednesday.
No, today's the 24th and Thursday's the 25th and this Friday is August 26th.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I wasn't looking at my calendar. Thank you. That's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar. Well, I have one announcement, and that is that, which we've already referred to in this meeting, is that Commissioner Fishman and I are going down to, I received a request through Wayne for someone from the PRC to speak at or at least be on a panel pertaining to transmission in New Mexico, electric transmission in New Mexico for Water and Natural Resources Interim Committee, which is meeting in Clovis today. So I agreed to go, and then I invited Commissioner Fishman along because he's been extremely interested in transmission matters, particularly in the course of our working on the IRP rule, and I thought he'd be helpful and knowledgeable. So that's going to go on today. And from my perusal of the agenda yesterday, it looked like Mary Jane Parks is going to be talking about the community solar rule and our activities there tomorrow. So I think our panel is going to be an hour long, and there are 5 people on it. And I learned last night that half of the time will be devoted to questions and answers. So we'll have a half an hour for all 5 of us to speak. We'll have 6 minutes each. So we'll have to make it concise. But I agree with Commissioner or Vice Chair Maestas that I guess it was Wayne who said that it's good to be there. It's good to be present at some of these things. So I'm looking forward to going down. Any other comments from anybody? Commissioner Fishman, you look like you're ready.
Well, I'll just follow up on the meeting. As I'd asked Christopher for a list of legislative ideas that I know he and Vice Chair Maestas have been compiling. So we're going to bring that along since we're going to be in the midst of a bunch of legislators. And we'll just have that list in front of us if the opportunity arises. We're going to be having dinner tonight with Senator Stefanik and Representative McQueen, who are both committee chairs, one in the House, one in the Senate. And so, that's a nice audience to have. So if there's anything in particular you want us to raise, send us an email and, we can be sure at least it gets on our list of topics. And so I just wanted to say that. And then finally, I wanted to thank Commissioner Byrd for his clarification on meals with Ed. So thank you. We just couldn't have survived the meeting without that. Commissioner Byrd, thank you.
Okay. Any other communications with commissioners? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Oh, she's going to support the DOT on their EV and plan. Oh, here's Mary Jane saying, speaking about transportation.
Still live, Commissioner